And then she met a man who was 30 years older than she was, Edmond de Polignac. Now, Edmond de Polignac was a great musical man. He composed himself and would have been professional had he not been aristocratic. And Winnaretta had two loves, and she had to choose between them, painting and music. And because Edmond de Polignac was a musician, it was painting that lost out. Now, she was herself a very good painter and painted in the manner of the Impressionists. And she began collecting Monets. At the end, I think she had 6 Monets at the end before her estate was broken up. Terrific. In fact, she met Edmond de Polignac they both wanted to buy the same picture of tulips in a field by Monet. And so she got it ultimately by marrying him. And it turned out to be one of the happiest marriages ever. With sex out of the way, they could both go their own different ways. And their letters to each other, because they were both wickedly funny and both very, they loved each other deeply. And when he died in 1901, she was absolutely shattered by his death. But she became a great patron of music. In fact, Ravel's Pavane for a dead Infanta is dedicated to her. Renard the Fox by Stravinsky was commissioned by her. Satie wrote Relâche for her. Kurt Weill wrote his Second Symphony for her. And most importantly, I suppose, Poulenc, who became her friend late in life, because they had a common sense of humor, wrote the double piano concerto and the great organ concerto for her, because she was also a very skilled musician. She used to accompany the great violinists. She built a palace, it's still there, the Singer Polignac in Paris, near the Eiffel Tower, and on the top of it's a music room, which is about half the size of this. And their concerts were given, and the great violinists, Rubinstein played there, all the great people played there. And this is where the premieres of many of the works, even little operas. Emmanuel Defire's Master Peter's Puppet Show was first performed there. Her main drive was towards music, but she regretted leaving painting behind, but she kept on as an amateur herself throughout her life. A remarkable woman. She learned ancient Greek in order to supervise the archaeological digs in Greece that she was funding. She funded a lot of the prizes everywhere for sculpture, painting, writing, and so on. And indeed, one of the great stories, and we must be very careful because I could talk about it for the next 2 hours, but one of the great stories about her was that the Salvation Army in Paris approached her for funds to build a new shelter. It's the Maison de Refuge for the poor of Paris. And she said, yes, I'll help you out, so long as you use a young architect that I've got my eye on, whose writings I find very interesting. And his name was Jean Généré. And Généré is known to us now as Le Corbusier. And this was the first public commission that Corbusier ever got. And when the man who was the head of the Salvation Army came to get the money, her little nephew who was staying with her was there, and so she gave him an envelope, says, go downstairs and see what the reaction is. And the head of the Salvation Army opened the envelope and promptly fainted on the parquet floor. For instead of a couple of thousand francs, there was 1.5 million francs to build the entire thing. That's what we all look for when we're fundraising, isn't it? But she was an extraordinary woman. And as I say, she was a great collector of Monets. And she appears in the Proust novel probably as Madame Verdurin. She was very witty. One high-class French countess said to her at one occasion, my name is greater than yours. And Winnaretta was heard under her breath saying, not at the bottom of a check. And On another occasion, she had the Italian ambassador to dinner who was saying, aren't taxes terrible? They're excruciating, tyrannical, dreadful, killing, awful. What else can they tax? And Winaretta said, adjectives, perhaps? She was a lovely lady, and she looked very much like, not the Statue of Liberty, but something from Mount Rushmore.